Hello friends! Welcome back to another video. Welcome to my corner of the interwebs. Let's talk about books, shall we? So the keen-eyed amongst you have probably noticed that I have not changed my outfit in several videos that are going out in the month of January, and that's because it is cold and I am lazy. But I have learned to put my readers on. What are we here for today? It is not to commend myself for remembering that I am now getting short-sighted in my elder years here. We are here to talk about my notable December reads. So in the month, I'll give you some stats for the month, and these are all for my Bookly app. Again, I think I say it in a video. I don't know which one's coming out first, but I will leave a link down below to Bookly. This is an app for your phone. I don't believe there's any web component. I could be wrong. This is how I track most of my reading. I'm really bad at consistently going on and tracking my reading on Goodreads. I'm trying to use a spreadsheet this year. Again, I failed that in 2019. I tried Goodreads last year, failed that. This is the only thing I've been successful with. Anywho, so in the month of December, I read 18 books. That was a total of 7,460 pages for people who like stats. I usually read more books in a month. I'm actually shocked by how few that is, but it's been a crazy month, so I shouldn't be that surprised that I only read 18. That's a shit ton of books to read in a month anyway, but when you're used to reading more than that, it seems a bit odd. So I'm not going to go through all 18 of these books. What I really want to start doing, since I do tend to read quite a few books every month, usually somewhere upwards of 20, I want to just go through the notable books. The books that I really want to share my thoughts on. And so that's what we're going to do. Everything else, forget it. I don't care. We don't need to talk about books I didn't like. We don't need to talk about the third or fourth in a series unless it's crazy good and I want to talk about it. Just know that there's more books that I've read. These are the books that I want you, my dear, wonderful fellow book readers, to know about and to read, and to know that I, Alyssa, your humble book reviewer, loved and enjoyed. And you might start to wonder, Alyssa, why is everything you do 6? Because I have 6 notable reads for you. It's because little post-it note picture that I can put in my GoodNotes app has 6 little check boxes, and so everything I do ends up being 6. It feels nice. I don't like odd numbers anyway, so it just feels cozy and good. I'm hoping that doing things this way will be wrap-ups like this. It'll be easier for me to actually do my wrap-ups because it'll be far less time-consuming. And also, these will be the books that I remember the most, and they will probably be books that I'm choosing my best books of the year from. And books I don't talk about will probably be on the worst books of the year. And plus, it's less negativity out in the world, these are books that I really loved and these are notable. I'm sure sometimes the notable book will be horrible and it'll be I have to tell you how bad this book is so you never read it, but not from December. I don't have that for you. So let's go through the 6 notable reads I had from December. So we're going to start off with what surprised me. This book surprised me this month, and that was A Marvelous Light by Farah Marsk. So this was sent to me kindly by Tor.com. Thank you, Tor. Love you so much. And I also ordered the Rainbow Crate box that they did for this book, which you can see that unboxing if you haven't caught it already. It was a quick and dirty, crazy unboxing. But I just loved this book. I was surprised at how much I loved it. And I will say, I don't think the audiobook is great. I think that the audiobook is a little weird and makes this book a little slow, and I think it's really hard to get into it if you're just listening to it, especially because I feel like the narrator tries to do different voices for Robin and Edwin, and I feel like depending on whose perspective the chapter is from, those voices flip-flop around. And so it's not like Edwin has the same voice throughout and Robin has the same voice throughout. It's very weird. So I would say don't listen to the audiobook, which I don't normally say that. Read the book, but I absolutely loved this. So what the hell is this book? So A Marvelous Light is this quirky little queer retelling of like Holmes and Watson. So I'll read you the synopsis here so you get a little sense of it. So Robin Blythe has more than enough bother in his life. Alyssa, you said you learned to put your readers on, so put your readers on. Robin Blythe has more than enough bother in his life. He's struggling to be a good older brother, a responsible employer, and the harried baronet of a seat gutted by his late parents' excesses. When an administrative mistake sees him named the civil service liaison to a hidden magical society, he discovers what's been operating beneath the unextraordinary reality he's always known. Now Robin must contend with the beauty and danger of magic, an excruciatingly deadly curse, and the alarming visions of the future that come with it. Not to mention Edwin Corsi, his cold and prickly counterpart in the magical bureaucracy, who clearly wishes Robin were anyone and anywhere else. Robin's predecessor has disappeared, and the mystery of what happened to him reveals unsettling truths about the very oldest stories they've been told about the land they live on and what binds it. So we have a hate to love kind of relationship. We have magic. We have curses. We have Edwardian England. We have like funny romps. We have like saucy scenes. It is a little spicy. It is good. I thoroughly enjoyed this romp through this magical world, and I want to know more. I loved watching Robin and Edwin sort of fall in love with each other. I loved the way they handled queerness in Edwardian England. I loved everything about this book. This was like a hug to me. I just enjoyed it. I know that one of my friends didn't enjoy this, and I was like heartbroken that she didn't enjoy it, but that's okay. We don't all have to like the same books, but for me, this book was fantastic. It is a little spicy, and if you don't like spice, maybe don't read this. It is weird and just wonderful in my humble opinion, but I like weird books. I am a weird human. I have a weird brain. I like weird books. Loved this though. Loved this. It made me so happy. So happy in December. I read this in the beginning of the month too, and this was just like such a high, and then not that the month got bad reading wise, just like the month got bad everything else wise. So like I kind of wish that I had read this at the end of the month so I could have ended on that much happiness, just like in my life in general, but that is not the time that this came into my life. And I feel like I've been looking at myself in the computer over here and not into the camera this whole time. So yeah, that's fun. I still haven't learned how to do this. Great. Good. How many videos have I filmed for this camera? I still don't know how to do this properly. What? So next I'm gonna go for a couple books that I don't think anyone is shocked to see me, if you've been following here and on the podcast, to hear me talk about either of these authors, you're gonna know that why. Not gonna be surprised. I'm already holding it up. One of these is The Lincoln Highway by Amer. I flipping love this author. He is so freaking good at just capturing people and place and human emotion and telling a story that's just so beautiful, and I loved it. I loved it so much. I will read anything he will write. I will tell you that I was very hesitant going into this book because it felt like a story that might be boring because it's not something that I could relate to, but it was, for me, far from boring. In general, it's about 4 boys on a road trip, which is why I was like, in 1950, like, whatever. But it's not a whatever story. It is not a boring story. It is really interesting. It also takes place, and we all know I love books set around where I live, and it does take place in New York City for large chunks of it. It also takes place up along the Hudson in the areas that I live, the areas that I visit. So it hits a lot of places that I know and love, and I love any story that does that. And I feel like lots of people have this where they read stories about where they're from and they love it so much. There's something about that extra connection to the text that is just so good. Anyway, I think why I'm so distracted and looking at here is I'm not used to having my nails done. So I'm like, whose hands are these? They're not mine. Surely they're not mine. Yeah, they are. All right, so let me give you the little inside flap on this story so you can see if you would like to read it. In June 1954, 18-year-old Emmett Watson is driven home to Nebraska by the warden of the juvenile work farm where he has just served 50 months for involuntary manslaughter. His mother long gone, his father recently deceased, and the family farm foreclosed upon by the bank. Emmett's intention is to pick up his 8-year-old brother Billy and head to California where they can start their lives anew. But when the warden drives away, Emmett discovers that two friends from the work farm have hidden themselves in the trunk of the warden's car. Together they have hatched an altogether different plan for Emmett's future, one that will take them all on a fateful journey in the opposite direction to the city of New York. Spanning just 10 days and told from multiple points of view, Toll's third novel will satisfy fans of his multi-layered literary style while providing them an array of new and richly imagined settings, characters, and themes. So I loved the different perspectives in this story. You get all kinds of different people. The boys are really interesting. You've got like Duchess, who is this sort of, I don't know how to describe him. He's almost like a Puck-like character in the sense that he's constantly making mischief, but he's also making mischief most of the time. It seems like he has good intentions, but like you're never really sure if he does. I'm trying not to give anything away in the story, but you're never really sure if Duchess has good intentions or not. There's always something that you're like kind of off kilter with, but he's always making mischief in some way. Emmett is like a really straight-laced guy who sort of just happened to accidentally murder somebody, and it's very, very much an accident, and he's just trying to stay on the straight and narrow. He wants to take his brother to California. He wants to do what's right and safe, and he's not like a risk taker in any way, but he's been wrapped up with these other boys. And then Billy is this really cute and precocious kid who I get such a kick out of him. And he's so endearing and lovely, and he makes friends with so many different people along this journey, and he's such a wonderful character to meet new characters through. And then, oh my god, what's the fourth boy's name? His name is Wally, I want to say. Wooly. So Wooly, I think his full name is like Wallace. Wooly is this sort of troubled kid. I mean, he probably would be considered having some sort of mental illness today, like that would have been treated appropriately, we hope. But he comes from an incredible, and he would be in a very different place than he is in this story. But he's like really kind and loving, and sort of follows Duchess around. And comes from a very wealthy family, and it's that wealthy family and the promise of some funds that turns their journey from California to New York, and all kinds of adventures ensue. It is so fascinating. There was also this family friend, Sally, who you get to see her anger about being a woman in 1950s America, and just how stifling of an existence it is, and how all you can do is like cook and clean and do all this stuff for the men in your life, and how unsatisfying that is. And you also see that in Wooly's sister in certain places, this idea of, and she's like this idealized, 50s housewife, and you can see her own dissatisfaction with her life, even though she seemingly has everything one could want, the rich husband, the name, the background, the prestige, the lineage, all those things, and you can see how sort of unhappy her life is as well. So it's just, he does such a fantastic job of exploring human existence in and feeling in very specific points in time. He did it with Gentlemen in Moscow, he did it with Rules of Civility, and now he's done it again with this. And I will read anything he puts out, because it's just going to be a stunningly written, I'm trying to think of the word, like a stunningly written expose on the human experience in a certain time. So I think that's like a really, I feel like, ballsy, epic way of describing this, but this is so good. If it's chunky, the audiobook for this is really good too. You've got lots of different narrators, so I highly recommend anything he writes, ever, forever, and always. And then the other book that'll come to no one's surprise is I absolutely loved Sally Rooney, A Beautiful World. Beautiful World, Where Are You? This book is her best book thus far, in my humble opinion, because she did a little of what she did in, why is my brain blanking? Normal People. In terms of like these relationships that sort of feel like they never can be because people can't get out of their own way, but these people really love each other. But she adds in like this commentary on capitalism and art and creativity and friendships and mental health and love and family and all these things, and it's so good. Like, she has this like economy of language at times where she packs so much into a paragraph. I have to do a reread of it, and I have to like tab it up to the heavens because it is just so stinking good. I will read you the little synopsis here in case anybody cares to know what it's about. Alice, a novelist, meets Felix, who works in a warehouse, and asks him if he'd like to travel to Rome with her. In Dublin, her best friend Eileen is getting over a breakup and slips back into flirting with Simon, a man she has known since childhood. Alex, Felix, Eileen, and Simon are all still young, but life is catching up with them. They desire each other, they delude each other, they get together, they break apart. They have sex, they worry about their friendships and the world they live in. Are they standing in the last lighted room before the darkness, bearing witness to something? Will they find a way to believe in a beautiful world? Now, I just don't think that really gives this book like a fair synopsis, but it's beautiful. Basically, you have these like, each chapter will be like from Alice or Eileen's perspective, and then in between those chapters are emails between the two of them where they expound on different just ideas and themes, like art and creativity and relationships and love and all of like everything I said before. And it's just it's so good. And she did it again. I cried. Like, she gets me every time. I love her so much. I love her writing so much. I finally got Conversations with Friends, if you saw that at my most recent book haul, so I can finally read her first book, but I don't think anything will touch her most recent write. I think this book is just, I hope she just keeps getting better and better, because so far it feels like she's just building momentum upon momentum. And I also want to know, in A Beautiful World, where are you? Not how are you? Beautiful World, where are you? How much of it is autobiographical? Like, how much of Alice's life is Sally Rooney? That's what I want to know. Anyway, moving on. So I'm going to talk about 2 ebooks that I read this month. One was the super short and incredibly impactful So You Want to Talk About Race. I need to look at her name to try to say it, and I will probably still butcher it, and I apologize. Okay, So You Want to Talk About Race by, and I'm gonna try, she only says 37,000 times in the audiobook, and I haven't internalized it yet. Ijoma Oluo? She wrote Mediocre, which I am reading with Jess Owens' book Community Reads this month. And this is, I believe, the book before that. And this is, and it might be her first book. This is like this really fast and impactful exploration of what does it mean to be Black in America today. What it is, I don't even know how to describe this book, but this is like, there are so many people I want to read this book. There's so many things that she says where I'm like, yes, this is the hard work that has to be done. You like, thank you. Like, pulls no punches. She is like, no, you need to look in the mirror, and I don't care how woke you are, and I don't care how much you think you are this perfect yada yada person. Like, look in the mirror, look at yourself, examine the words you're saying, examine the things and the way people react to you, examine, the impact your actions have on the people around you, and in particular, persons of color around you. It's just, it's, I don't even know how to articulate this, but it's just so good. I like books that aren't trying to delicately put something, because this isn't a delicate lesson. Like, I'm sorry, the time for like holding people's hands and being like, okay, so like this is how we're gonna change things because we need to not be. No, like this is like time for action and like a punch in the face, figuratively speaking, where you're like, no, this is what it's like. This is reality. This is what these words mean. This is why you can't use this word. This is why what you're saying isn't, you might feel like that's the right argument because it sounds good. Like it sounds good to just be like, everybody will be better if you just raise minimum wage. Well, things are more complex than that. I guess that's the basic, like it doesn't try to assuage anybody's like, I don't know, white guilt. It is like, no, these are complex issues that are going to have complex solutions, and nothing's going to get fixed until you start fixing yourself, and you need to look yourself in the mirror and you need to fix your shit because times I need to start changing, and it's going to take real action, and it's going to take a lot of time. So I loved it. I loved it so much, and I feel like I need to just give this to people to read. Like every time I catch somebody being just a tiny bit racist, be like, here you go. Keep a stack, hand them out, and be like, time for you to read this. And then the last book, no, not the last book, the second to last book, the other ebook that I read this month, it was called The Singing Trees by Boo Walker, which I don't even know how I found this book. Oh, I remember. I had read Braiding Sweetgrass. I wanted more books like Braiding Sweetgrass. I went through the Amazon algorithm, putting things in my wish list, my extensive wish list, which is my one day I will buy all these books list. And somehow this book came up, and I'm not quite sure why, but it sounded interesting, and I think like it was on Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, all right. And so I put it on and I read it. And this is a really interesting historical fiction that I have not read about like this time period really before, and it's sort of like a romance. It's also like a friend narrative. It's just like a contemporary historical, does that make sense? It's a contemporary historical fiction. That's not English, Alyssa, but it's a historical fiction. What does Goodreads say it is? Historical fiction romance. There you go. Historical romance. I don't know, does that work? English. This is my third video today. I'm done after this. So I'll read you the synopsis so you understand it. But this is set during the Vietnam War. Predominantly it's set during the Vietnam War, and then it starts in like the present and then flashes back to around the Vietnam War. And I really just enjoyed it. Like, I guess I just haven't read a historical fiction with like some romance in it in a long time. So it sort of surprised me because I just haven't read this genre in a really long time because I've been stuck in like fantasy and just random translated works, etc. So a young artist forges a path of self-discovery in an enriching novel about forgiving the past and embracing second chances from the best-selling author of An Unfinished Story. Maine, 1969, after losing her parents in a car accident, aspiring artist Alyssa Mancuso lives with her grandmother and their large Italian family in the stifling factory town of Peyton Mills. Inspired by her mother, whose own artistic dreams disappeared in a damaged marriage, Alyssa is dedicated only to painting, closed off to love, and driven as much by her innate talent as she is the disillusionment of her past. Alyssa just wants to come into her own. The first step is leaving Peyton Mills and everything it represents. The next, the inspiring opportunities in the city of Portland and a thriving New England art scene where Alyssa hopes to find her voice. But she meets Thomas, an Ivy League student whose attentions and troubled family upend her pursuits in ways she never imagined possible. As their relationship deepens, Alyssa must balance her dreams against an unexpected love until the unraveling of an unforgivable lie. For Alyssa, opening herself up to life and to love is a risk. It might also be the chance she needs to finally become the person and the artist she's meant to be. It definitely deals with like a misunderstanding trope, and it's all comes out of this lie that gets told, and this lie really impacts the lives of Alyssa and Thomas, and Alyssa's relationship with like Thomas's family, and it's so good. It's a little bit of a roller coaster. I haven't read anything like in the Vietnam period. So like, and obviously like I know about Vietnam, like from peers of my dad and like stuff like that. And my dad was in Vietnam. He was not drafted, thank God, for him, but so many men just waited in fear. He would tell me about these fears of people waiting to be drafted, and like you can feel that in this story, and that fear of never having of the person you love not coming home. And it's just, if you want a good historical fiction with some romance and some like really good tropes, I'm trying to think if there's any spice. I don't really think there's any spice at all, but like it's more just historical fiction with romance. It was really good. It surprised me. I enjoyed it. And then last but not least, and I'm not going to talk too much about this because we are going to be doing a live discussion for the TBR Lowdown Book Club that I run with my friend Naomi, that we have a podcast, yada yada. I will put maybe here the podcast link or whatever, so you can check it out. But we read Razorblade Tears for December. My mouth is not working, so I apologize if the rest of this video from here on out is just incoherent. But this is my first essay Cosby, and I didn't know what to expect. So when I got into the story, and this book was so hard-hitting and violent and compelling, and the commentary is on race relations in the South in particular, being homosexual, being Black and homosexual, about being poor, about being a criminal, being an ex-con, I did not expect all of this to be wrapped up in this book. I was like, this is going to be a fun thriller. There is so much in this book, and we're going to go into it on the live, but like so much exploration happens about these really big topics. And it's sometimes why I like these, I think we talked about this on a podcast once. I like these softer genres, that can trick you into really experiencing absorbing a very complex or heavy theme, or words have escaped me, topic. It's almost like you get tricked into having to have like big brain thoughts when you just picked up like what is actually should be like, I'm reading a thriller, and like, or I'm just reading a romance, but it's dealing with something way bigger and more complex than what you maybe assume from the outside would be part of that kind of story. So I loved that. I love when that happens, and that definitely happens with Razorblade Tears, and it's just so good. Basically, you have these two fathers that are trying to figure out who killed their sons, because their sons were married, and they were murdered very violently, and they're trying to figure out who murdered them, because the police have just sort of stopped trying to figure this out, and it has infuriated them, which it should. And this journey that they go on, it is very cinematic. Like, I can see this playing out. It made me want to watch the show Luther. If you've never watched Luther, watch it. And yeah, so good. Check out the live when we do it. If you've read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've read this, what you think of it. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I love this book. More to come on Razorblade Tears. So those were the 6 notable reads I have from December of 2021, and may the rest of 2022 bring many wonderful reads to you all and to myself. I've lost my mind, so I'm going to stop. Let me know what books you enjoyed reading in December. What was your favorite book of the year? Just let me know. Give me book recommendations. I love book recommendations. I love reading more books. The more books you tell me about, the more books I can read. So let me know down below some of your favorites from the year, from December. If you're not already and you feel so compelled, please hit the little buttons down below and like and subscribe, ring bells and all that jazz. Every way that you interact with the channel really helps me out. If you're new here, say hello. I love to meet new people, and welcome to my little corner of the interwebs. And otherwise, I'll see you guys in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Bye.
So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think we were meant to be.